Thanks for joining us. We're here in conversation today talking about GDPR, a topic that's important to all organizations these days. I'm joined by two well-known and highly respected practitioners of all things security and compliance related. Dob Todorov is the Chief Executive of HeliCloud.
Pleasure to be here, Wayne.
Thank you, Dob. And Tim Raines leads AWS initiatives in security and compliance here in Europe, Middle East and Africa.
Great to be here, Wayne.
Thanks, guys. So both of you have 20 plus years experience in the field of IT security and compliance. And I'm sure that you've been having lots of conversations with customers around GDPR. We're a few months into the regulations now. So what is it that you're hearing from customers these days? Dob?
GDPR is one of these hot topics, and a lot of our customers talk about GDPR, and some of them are well prepared, others are probably concerned when it comes to their readiness for GDPR adoption and effectively applying it across the applications and workloads that they're running on premises as well as in the cloud. I think one of the big reasons for confusion and perhaps concern as well is the fact that GDPR is a legal construct, and many organizations struggle to translate the legal requirements into technical controls that they need to implement, whether on premises or in the cloud. And GDPR is not very prescriptive either when it comes to implementing such controls. So that's probably an area of concern for some of our customers. I think it's also fair to say that cloud, although it's become the mainstream delivery platform for many organizations today, is still a topic of discussion within many large enterprise organizations. And questions such as where does the data reside, how is my data protected in the cloud, is anyone else able to access my data in the cloud, continue to be questions asked in the boardroom and perhaps in various business level discussions as well. And these are perhaps some of the areas for concern. We've also seen a lot of hype around GDPR on the market. I think many conventional hardware and software vendors have used the opportunity to introduce new products or perhaps new license regimes when it comes to GDPR. And I think such organizations are perhaps adding to the confusion on the market by delivering the message, for instance, that a firewall is all that you need in order to achieve GDPR compliance. Whereas in general, GDPR is a security and compliance topic which helps organizations establish good hygiene in terms of how they identify the data that they need to protect, in terms of how they manage the information assets that they've got, in terms of the architecture that they put in place, in terms of how they implement the security and compliance controls to protect data, and ultimately how they, on an ongoing basis, maintain compliance. I think these are some of the topics that we see a lot when we talk to customers these days.
Great, that's a lot to take in. Tim, how about yourself?
I hear similar things from customers that are looking for clarity on a bunch of issues. One of the things I hear from some customers in the public sector is that they're not aware that GDPR can actually apply to public sector customers. Right. And so when you read the actual regulation, it's 88 pages long. I think public authorities appear 49, 50 times in 88 pages. So GDPR is clearly going to apply to a lot of public sector organizations. And so I think they should, make sure that they're leveraging their general counsel and, real legal expertise to determine whether that's the case. Mm-hmm. And then relatedly, when they start going down the path to determine whether they actually, whether they need to comply to the GDPR, they start doing a data inventory, and all of a sudden they realize that they have a lot of data and they have potentially a lot of personal information in long-term storage. And so they wonder, hey, how do I get access to all of this data? How do I find out where the data is and what do we have? And they realize that this data inventory process can be quite difficult. Mm-hmm. And then, there's a whole range of topics as they go through the process of determining whether GDPR applies to them, getting access to the data. Later on, when new systems come online or they make material changes to systems, the data flows can change and the types of data that they actually collect and store and transmit change. And so they need to have processes ongoing to make sure that they're complying with GDPR despite all of the change that happens in the organization. Right. So GDPR isn't a destination, it's actually a journey.